Welcome to today's Cabinet meeting. Could I ask you to ensure your mobile phones, laptops and other devices are switched off or on silent and that microphones are switched off? Could I ask ICT if you're ready to roll? Thank you, gentlemen. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Cabinet meeting. I'm Councillor Richard Bell, Deputy Leader of Durham County Council and Chairman of today's meeting, which is being broadcast live through our YouTube channel. Before we commence with today's formal business, I would like to remind members to please switch off or make silent your mobile phones and all other devices and keep microphones switched off at all times unless invited to speak. When invited to speak, please switch on the microphone nearest to you and introduce yourself. Moving on to the agenda, item 1, public questions. We have received no public questions for today's meeting. Item 2, minutes. Could I have a mover for the minutes of the meeting on the 14th of February, please?
Thank you, Chair. Move those minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Shield, and I will second the minutes. Item 3, declarations of interest. Can we agree the minutes is a correct record? I can confirm the minutes are agreed. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations from members? No. Moving on then to item 4. Spennymoor Long-Term Plan for Towns, Report of Corporate Director of Regeneration, Economy and Growth, Key Decision Reg 2024/002. Can I ask Andy Kerr, the Head of Economic Development, to present the report?
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to provide Cabinet with an update on the Government's Long-Term Plan for Towns programme, which was announced last year and includes Spennymoor amongst the 55 initial towns identified for investment. The report goes on to detail the actions undertaken since then to secure the release of the £20 million of funding that has been allocated by Government to Spennymoor to be spent over the next 10 years. The funding must be directed towards the three programme themes of High Street Heritage and Regeneration, Transport and Connectivity, and Safety and Security. In delivering the programme, Government requires a council to form a town board with some of the membership prescribed and focused on developing community capacity to identify and help address issues at a local level. This means the programme provides clear alignment with our place-based regeneration aspirations set out in the Inclusive Economic Strategy. As accountable body for this funding, we have been working with partners and stakeholders to form a town board which will oversee the development of a vision and investment plan for the town through engagement with businesses and residents over the coming months. We must prepare and submit our plans to Government by the 1st of August of this year. Today we ask Cabinet to note the work that we are undertaking in developing this £20 million place-based regeneration programme and to approve the recommendations in paragraph 8 of the report.
Thank you, Andy. Can I invite Councillor Elizabeth Scott, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Economy and Partnerships, to move the report?
Thank you, Chair. The Government's identification of Spennymoor as one of the 55 initial towns to benefit from the Long-Term Plan for Towns programme provides a welcome additional allocation of £20 million to enhance and embed the ongoing regeneration efforts we've been delivering across Spennymoor. Building on the work we and private developers have undertaken in and around the town, this new funding provides the opportunity to make significant and long-lasting improvements and ensure Spennymoor remains a vibrant main centre serving an increasing residential population through its focus on the three themes of High Street Heritage and Regeneration, Safety and Security, and Transport and Connectivity. The programme requires us to form a town board with some clear parallels to the work we've been undertaking in Bishop Auckland as part of the Stronger Towns programme. That experience will be invaluable in making the required rapid progress in developing the vision for the town and the first 3-year investment plan, which we must submit to Government by August. Central to the success of the programme will be to ensure that local people feel the programme meets their needs, and much of the initial development work will focus on the involvement of stakeholders and community organisations, helping build civic capacity as well as delivering agreed improvements. The Long-Term Plan for Towns approach aligns well with our approach set out in the Inclusive Economic Strategy, creating strategic place plans that are co-designed with local community and stakeholders to provide and deliver future visions for our towns and villages. And Chair, can I just take this opportunity to thank the staff team who've worked so hard already in getting things in place for this very swift delivery programme. And I therefore propose the recommendations in paragraph 8 of the report for the Council to formally adopt the inclusive... Spennymoor Town Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Can I invite Councillor Alan Shield, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Equality and Inclusion, to second the report?
Thank you, Chair. The long-term plan for towns provides an opportunity for us to approach the regeneration of Spennymoor from a broad base, addressing not only the town centre issues, but also a wider focus on connectivity, accessibility and safety. In doing so, we'll be working with and listening to local people and looking to make investments which can make a difference to the people's lives now and into the future. Working with the board, which includes elected officials, residents, businesses and stakeholders, should provide us with an inclusive route through the development of the Vision and Investment Plan, which will galvanise current efforts across the town and provide new opportunities for improvement and investment. I therefore second the recommendation in paragraph 8 of the report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shield. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to the report? No? Could we agree the report and its recommendations then, please? Thank you. I can confirm that the recommendations are agreed. Item 5, Corporate Enforcement Policy, Report of Corporate Director of Neighbourhoods and Climate Change. Can I ask Alan Patrickson, Corporate Director of Neighbourhoods and Climate Change, to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This report is to adopt a revised corporate enforcement policy from April 2024 and to grant delegated powers to relevant corporate directors in consultation with the Head of Legal and Democratic Service to review and amend as required in the future. The Council undertakes a wide range of regulatory rules in meeting its statutory duties. These are designed to protect the public, individuals, businesses and the environment through a combination of inspections, licensing, customer reporting and proactive and reactive actions. The corporate enforcement policy is a necessary overarching policy that applies to almost all of the Council's enforcement duties. In many areas of activity, there will also be a service-specific policy that works underneath and alongside the policy that will set out any service-specific enforcement requirements that apply. The policy sets out the broad approach that the Council will take in its enforcement activities, and this revision brings the policy up to date with current best practice and guidance. The basis of the Legislative and Regulatory Reform Act of 2006 requires that the Council has regard to the principles of good regulation, which can be summarised as being proportionate, accountable, consistent, transparent and targeted. In addition, the Regulators Code of 2014 sets out 6 broad principles for regulation, which are set out in paragraph 17 of the report. It's also a requirement that regulators have a mechanism to engage with those that they regulate, and that service standards are published to set out clear expectations and actions in the event of non-compliance. The revised policy presented today has been subject to public and partner consultation, and the responses are set out in Appendix 3 to the report. As part of the recommendations, delegated authority is requested for corporate directors to amend the policy as and when required in the future, in conjunction with the Head of Legal and Democratic Services. It's anticipated that the policy will be reviewed in a 3-yearly cycle or as required. In conclusion, this update to the corporate enforcement policy maintains an essential part of the Council's statutory functions, bringing necessary updates into force from this April. The recommendations are set out in paragraph 7.
Thank you, Alan. Can I invite Councillor Mark Wilkes, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Neighbourhoods and Climate Change, to move the report?
Good morning and thank you, Chair. This short report to update the corporate enforcement policy may at first sight seem a little bit dry, a little procedural, and to some extent it is, but it's nonetheless very important. The very fact that this is only the 2nd revision of this important document demonstrates the robustness of the policy itself and its effectiveness as an overarching corporate document, the value of which should not be underestimated. It is this policy that has supported our wardens to confiscate and crush the vehicles of fly tippers, to prosecute a record number of fly tipping cases, and to issue FPNs for antisocial behaviour such as littering and dog fouling. This policy has supported our planning teams to take action against inappropriate development and our housing teams to take action against rogue landlords to protect vulnerable tenants. This policy has also allowed us to take action against retailers selling age-restricted products to young people and takeaways that do not meet hygiene standards. Enforcement is an important part of the responsibilities of a local authority to protect the public and the environment. I'm grateful to officers in the Community Protection Team who have again led on this important update, and the revised policy puts us on a firm footing to continue this important work. Happy to move the recommendations, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkes. Can I invite Councillor Alan Shield, Portfolio Holder for Equality and Inclusion, to second the report?
Thank you, Chair. The services of this council encompass a wide range of direct support, protection and advice for residents, businesses and visitors, as well as the wider environment. And although we always seek positive solutions, there are times when enforcement is either the only course of action or the most appropriate course of action available to us. In these instances, it is vital that our officers are armed with the appropriate policy and legislative backing to allow them to do this effectively. The revision of the corporate enforcement policy brings this important document up to date, incorporating latest national guidance and regulation. It has been subject to extensive public consultation and feedback, albeit modest considered it is in the final version. I second the recommendations in paragraph 7, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Shield. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Can we agree the report and its recommendations? I can confirm that the recommendations are agreed. Thank you. Item 6, Quarter 3, 2023-2024 Performance Management Report. Can I ask Steve Evans, Head of Corporate Affairs, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out the details of progress towards targets and outcomes set out in the Corporate Plan 2023-27, agreed by County Council in February 2023. The information in the report is based on the position as of the end of December 2023. A range of service level dashboards and supporting narrative within the report provide a clear golden thread between the priorities of this Council and the performance of operational services. We've also taken steps to include indicators identified by the new Office for Local Government. Further indicators will be added as and when they become published. Overall performance across the organisation remains strong across most areas of delivery. This is in terms of both strategic objectives when benchmarked against our North East peers and also, importantly, against statistical near-neighbour authorities as identified by SIPFA. As members will appreciate, this is a considerable achievement in the face of inflationary and demand-driven pressures. Where there are areas of performance falling below our expectations, we are aware of them and improvement plans are in place. These are referenced within the main body of the report. The main performance report is attached to Appendix 2, and the executive summary does just what it says on the tin and provides a very brief overview of performance across the organisation, both in areas that are positive and those areas that require some improvement. The performance data presented here will be reported to thematic overview and scrutiny committees in the coming weeks, where they will have the chance to undertake further in-depth analysis of the Council's performance and feedback on that. Cabinet are asked to note the contents of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. On behalf of the Leader of the Council, I would like to speak to move the noting of the report. Can I thank Steve and his team for this detailed and comprehensive update on our performance against the targets and actions set out in the Council plan. And it's pleasing that once again this review of our performance highlights that this Council is delivering for its residents despite the challenges of increasing demand and cost pressures. My Cabinet colleagues may wish to highlight particular aspects of this report associated with their own portfolios, but there are a number of areas which I would like to highlight. In terms of areas where we are performing well, I was pleased to note that in relation to our stated priorities on the economy, employment levels are within the highest levels for 20 years and unemployment remains low, while the amount of investment secured for companies and the number of inward investments attracted to the county are on track to achieve their annual targets. Processing times for major planning applications are better than target and compare favourably with peers. We have recorded increased attendances at all our cultural events, strengthening our position as the culture county and contributing significantly to the local economy. Looking at our environment, domestic waste diverted from landfill continues to be better than target and performance is improving. Kilograms of waste collected per household is reducing and contamination of recycled collection continues to fall following targeted education and enforcement activity. Moving on to our people, demand for early help and statutory support for children and families remains consistent with previous trends, while improved practice has led to a consistently low referral rate for statutory children's social care. This means fewer children and their families require further support from safeguarding services following support. In adult social care, timeliness of completion of Care Act assessments has increased by more than 10% since Q2, from 54.2% to 65.2%, and is the highest for over 2 years. This remains a key area of focus for the service. Turning to our communities, the time to repair highways maintenance defects across almost all categories are better than target, and we continue to see lower levels of fly tipping following a proactive approach towards perpetrators. Looking at our council, I'm pleased that at a time of financial difficulty for many residents, this council continues to provide financial support to those in need through our various support schemes. Almost 54,000 residents are receiving support towards council tax bills of more than £63 million through our council tax reduction scheme. A further £1.6 million has been spent supporting those who do not qualify for a 100% reduction. £9.3 million has been allocated through the Household Support Fund, HSF, including support for families claiming free school meals. And it's pleasing to note that last week the Chancellor announced a 6-month extension to this fund. Payments of almost £1 million have been made for discretionary housing, £187,000 for daily living expenses and a further £340,000 in settlement grants have been made since April. The report does, however, highlight a number of areas requiring our attention, where for a range of issues our performance has not been what we would have liked it to be. In terms of areas requiring attention where I know action is and will continue to be taken, I would note that although overall statutory demand for children's social care remains consistent, the number of children and young people receiving intensive support on a child protection plan and taken into our care is relatively high. The service is reviewing these trends and learning will feed into strategic placement, sufficiency work and preparation for the implementation of the care review proposals. Requests for new education, health and care plans, EHCPs, increased substantially between 2019 and 2022 and have continued at a very high level in 2023, which is impacting on the capacity in the service to achieve timely assessments. A comprehensive action plan is in place which seeks to address these challenges and improve timeliness and rates, particularly in relation to the backlog for educational psychologist advice. And this will continue to cause a timeliness issue until the backlog of requests has been cleared. In relation to homelessness prevention, the proportion of cases where statutory homelessness duty has been accepted has increased this quarter, due to the housing team significantly reducing the number of lost contact cases. We have secured government funding to acquire support and additional temporary accommodation and bed spaces to support those in need. On average, in our town centres, 16% of retail units in the county are vacant, compared to 14% nationally. Vacancy rates are significantly higher in Bishop Auckland, Newton Aycliffe and Peterlee. We continue to support through council-led initiatives such as the Towns and Villages programme, the Targeted Business Improvement Scheme and Town Centre Master Plans. Additionally, as we know, the government identified Bishop Auckland as eligible for funding from their Future High Streets Fund, Towns Fund, and we have heard this morning of the plans for Spennymoor. And with that, I propose that Cabinet notes the report. Would any other Cabinet members wish to speak on their areas? Councillor Wilkes.
Thank you, Chair. And can I thank officers as well for another excellent report, quarterly report. And it is fantastic to see that not only are we beating our own targets for fly tipping, but that we have a rate that's less than half the national average and as much as 5 times lower than some other North East councils. The over 30% fall since we took over the council from our proactive approach extends to a big increase in fixed penalty notices for waste carry offences, which so far this year are 10 times the average number under Labour. We're also doing nearly 7 times more stop checks on waste carriers than Labour did, and continue to prosecute more than double the number of fly tippers than Labour did. I recently spoke to a parish clerk in one of our more challenging parts of the county who said that the action of our wardens was showing the best work she'd ever seen. Our default yard clearance team, which we embedded into the warden service, is clearing up hundreds of filthy yards and gardens and billing those responsible, something that never happened under Labour, Chair. We're making excellent progress. There's more on the way, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkes. Councillor Shield.
Thank you, Chair. I intend to speak specifically on the homelessness issue. The proportion of households prevented from homelessness and helped to remain in their current home is on par with Q2. We are expecting further positive outcomes to continue following the appointment of 2 full-time visiting officers to assist with preventative work into existing accommodation. It needs to be acknowledged that the team have significantly reduced the lost contact cases since Q2, which has resulted in a higher number of cases requiring a main duty decision in Q3, which is expected will impact positively on the statistics. On a positive note, Durham County Council has been successful in securing additional funding, £4.42 million from the Department of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities, to deliver the Single Homeless Accommodation Programme, SHAP, to secure suitable accommodation for our most vulnerable clients, and funding will be used to purchase 32 bed spaces for rough sleepers or people at risk of rough sleeping. We've also been awarded £675,000 from Homes England to secure 15 temporary accommodation properties for clients owed as a homelessness duty. 13 of these properties have already been purchased, and a further bid of £1.5 million was submitted in January 2024 to secure funding for a further 25 properties. Chair, this should demonstrate Durham County Council's commitment to continue to address the variety of complex cases which present themselves to our homelessness team. However, on a word of caution, there is an element of concern regarding the issue of HMOs, houses of multiple occupation, particularly in East Durham, which may impact onto our homeless situation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Shield. Councillor Hood.
Thank you, Chair. Can I also thank Steve and his team for the thorough update in relation to the targets and activities specified in the Council Plan. It brings great satisfaction to see that this in-depth assessment of our work confirms that Durham County Council remains dedicated to serving its residents effectively, despite the challenges we face as outlined by the Deputy Leader. As portfolio holder, I'd like to speak to the report about the Council's adult and health services and highlight just some of our successes. As has been mentioned, as well as the percentage increase in Care Act assessments completed within 28 days, from 54.2% to 65.2% in Q2, the highest for over 2 years. The percentage of older people still at home 91 days after discharge from hospital into rehabilitation services is the highest since the same period last year, 91.9%, and within 1 percentage point of the 3-year average. Latest performance is better than our Better Care Fund target of 84% and regional and national benchmarking. Referrals into adult social care have been stable over the last year, with an average of 5,768 per quarter. While there was a drop in referrals in Q3 when compared to Q2, the figures remain on par with those from the same period a year ago. Latest data shows 68.3% of service users received an annual assessment or review in the last 12 months. Demonstrating the effectiveness of the new review team set up in early 2023, this marks the highest performance recorded in more than 2 years. The first year of operations for the new teams is overseen by a working group that meets on a regular basis providing monthly performance updates to service management teams. The Adult Care Management Team received detailed reports on progress. These are just some of the successes, but they will also remain as areas of focus and improvement for our adult and health service teams. The Care Quality Commission, CQC, is moving forward with upcoming local authority assessments that will provide individuals with independent confirmation of the standards of adult care in their region. 5 pilot local authority assessments, which test their assessment framework, methods and processes, have been completed. Following these pilot assessments, on the 30th of January this year, Durham County Council received notification that we are going to be one of the first councils to be assessed under the full local authority assessment. Although a huge piece of work and a challenge for everyone involved, I know that Jane Robinson, Corporate Director for Adult and Health Services, and her team are looking forward to welcoming the Commission to Durham County Council and to show the care and dedication our teams have for the residents of County Durham. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Steve as well for the reports that have been done. His team have worked hard. The report highlights a number of the areas requiring our attention, where a range of issues in our performance has not been what we would have liked it to be. I know action is being taken to rectify this. The number of children and young people receiving intensive support on a child protection plan and taken into our care is quite high, and the service is reviewing these trends. Requests for the educational health and care plans increased substantially, as it was said, between 2019 and 2022, and have continued at a very high rate in 2023. This has impacted on the service to achieve a timely assessment. Unfortunately, this in part due to the shortage of educational psychologists, and this will continue to impact on the service until we can engage more psychologists. This, unfortunately, is a national problem, not a local one. However, some of the good points that we have: in November 2023, we received a very positive Ofsted inspection of our care leaver services. Our family hubs were awarded National Trailblazer status, which means they are at the forefront of family support services in the country. The Adult and Community Learning Service has been rated as good provider of education by Ofsted in July 2023. In the past 2 to 3 weeks, Ofsted have camped within the county itself. We have had a large amount of reports from the inspections of the county schools, and they have all come out as good or outstanding. In fact, last night we got a report down to advise us that one of our homes had been inspected by Ofsted and had come out with an outstanding report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Thank you then, Cabinet. It's good to hear some of the detail of the good work that's going on in our various departments, which is very heartening. So if no one else wishes to speak, can we agree to note the report, please? Thank you. Moving on to item 7, forecast of revenue and capital outturn 2023-24, period to 31st of December 2023, and update on progress towards achieving MTFP 13 savings. Can I ask Paul Darby, Corporate Director of Resources, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. This report once again flags the continuing impact of inflationary and demand-driven pressures impacting on our budgets, particularly in our children looked after placement budgets and in our special educational needs budgets. It also shines a light on the budget pressures caused by the National Pay Award this year and the legacy from COVID in terms of the impact on our income budgets, particularly in our leisure centres. As the report identifies, adult health Adult and Health Services, the Chief Exec's Department and Resources are all forecasting cash limit underspends to the year end. But our neighbourhoods and climate change, regeneration, economy and growth and Children and Young People Services are all forecasting cash limit overspends to the year end. The most significant overspend relates to Children and Young People Services, where our looked after children costs in particular are contributing to a forecast £8.1 million overspend in that service, around £2 million higher than the position of Q2. Details of the cash limit forecasts for each service grouping are set out in paragraphs 54 to 95 of the report. Members will see at paragraph 49 that the report sets out details of the costs we have treated as outside the cash limit and met corporately, funded from our contingencies budget, and include in that tables a comparison with the position of Q2. The overall forecast cash limit and general reserves position is set out at paragraph 51 in the report, where members will see that the cash limit reserves at the 31st of March are forecast to be 8.1 million and the general reserve is forecast to be just over 30.3 million. The general reserve position is around £1 million higher than what was forecast at Q2, largely as a result of the receipt of additional government funding from a business rate levy surplus distribution that was announced as part of the final local government finance settlement and relates to last year. This updated forecast general reserve position will mean that the general reserve at the end of this year will be 5.8% of the Council's net budget requirement and therefore within the parameters of maintaining the general reserve of between 5 and 7.5% of the Council's net budget requirement, which for 24-25 is a range of between 28.2 million and 42.4 million. Corporate costs are forecast to be around £163,000 under budget to the year end, which is around £40,000 more underspent than what was forecast at Q2, and we are also reporting a £5.3 million underspend in the capital financing budget and a £5.2 million overachievement of investment income from the investment of our surplus cash balances. These Treasury management related underspends are a managed position in terms of delaying borrowing and are creating the headroom to offset corporately the overspending in Children and Young People Services and to meet the shortfall in the pay budgets as a result of the pay award agreed this year and the impact of our leisure centres closing during the transformation works that have been undertaken over the last 9 months. Appendix 4 to the report, as usual, contains a detail of all earmarked reserves and balances held by the Council with their opening position and forecast to the year end. As is usual, they are split between sums held corporately, grants and other sums held on behalf of third parties, and sums held by services for specific purposes. If we exclude our schools, our earmarked reserves, including cash limit reserves, are forecast to reduce by around £34 million in year to £162.2 million at the end of this financial year. The updated forecasts are a reduction in reserves with about £1 million more than what was forecast at Q2. In paragraphs 102 to 106 of the report, we provide a summary of this position, and members will note that £22.5 million of the £162.2 million relates to grant and sums held on behalf of third parties. The DSG position, that's the Dedicated Schools Grant, is covered in paragraphs 117 to 143 of the report, and the report provides details of the forecast outturn position against the Dedicated Schools Grant, including the high needs SEND allocations, our school block allocations and our early years block allocations. The updated forecast for our maintained schools is broadly in line with Q2 and shows that our maintained schools are still forecasting to have to draw on their retained balances by around £2.3 million to the year end, which is a significant improvement on the original budgets that were set last year when there was an anticipated £5.7 million draw on the reserves. This is the overall position, however, and within this there are a number of schools that are overspending in year and a number that are underspending, with details provided in the report in this regard. The updated forecast for our high needs DSG expenditure shows a forecast £2.4 million overspend to the year end, which compares with a £2.1 million overspend forecast at Q2. The main cost driver in this area remains top-up payments to schools to retain children in mainstream settings that have SEND requirements. The early years DSG forecast is for a £451,000 underspend, linked to a reduction in numbers of eligible children in the autumn term. The report includes details of the forecast capital programme outturn from paragraphs 144 onwards, including details of the various revisions that are proposed to the capital programme to reflect reprofiling of schemes and slippage into future years, as well as the receipt of other grant and other adjustments. Members will see that the revised total capital expenditure forecast for the year is just under £259.2 million, which is around £54 million less than was forecast at Q2 and £61 million less than what was in the original budget. At the end of December, the Council had spent just under £147 million of capital expenditure in the first 9 months. Details of how the capital programme is to be financed are set out at paragraphs 149, and in paragraphs 147 and 148 there is a summary of all the adjustments made to the capital programme that are proposed and which require Cabinet endorsement as part of agreeing the recommendations to this report. These adjustments build on the amendments that were agreed as part of the Cabinet report in February. Members will see at paragraphs 150 to 157 details of our performance against the various prudential indicators agreed by Council when the 23-24 budget was set. And in terms of the collection funds, the report includes details of the updated forecast outturn for both council tax and business rates collection funds, and these are set out from paragraph 158 onwards. The net position across both funds after the receipt of Section 31 grant for the Council is set out at paragraph 174, and this shows a net surplus of £849,000 to the year end, which compares to a £686,000 net surplus forecast at Q2. Finally, Chair, at paragraphs 181 onwards, there's a summary of the progress achieved in terms of delivering the £12.4 million of savings that were factored into the 23-24 budgets, and shows that at the end of December, just under 90% of the savings for the year had been delivered. And there's a further update from paragraph 185 onwards in terms of the HR implications from voluntary, compulsory and early retirements in year and since 2011. Chair, the recommendations are set out at paragraph 28. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. As Cabinet Member for Finance, I will speak to move the report. Can I thank the officers for this very comprehensive and thorough report, and budget managers across the Council for their continued focus on managing their areas, because maintaining a strong grip on our budgets is essential. The unavoidable cost pressures we are experiencing at this time are enormous. The ever-escalating demand for children's social care and the complexity of the needs of some of those children in particular are resulting in significant overspends once again, and this is placing huge pressure on our budgets and MTFP planning going forward. It's pleasing to note that there are some cash limit underspends forecast in adult and health services, resources and the Chief Executive's Office, offsetting the small overspends forecast in regen, economy and growth and neighbourhoods and climate change. The net underspend being around £2.5 million to year end. More worryingly, though, is that children and young people's services forecast overspend has risen from £6.2 million at Q2 to £8.1 million, and within this figure, there are higher overspends forecast in our looked after children's budget, where the placements budget is forecast to overspend by £9.1 million now, £2 million more than was forecast at Q2, and the principal reason why we have had to increase the budget growth in 24-25 to £12 million next year. The overspend in children looked after placement budgets this year is after, let's not forget, we invested an additional £15 million into this budget in the current year. It is staggering how demand and costs in this area of our budget continue to escalate. The net cash limit overspend for all services is now forecast to be nearly £5.6 million this year, broadly in line with the Q2 forecast. The cash limit overspend in children and young people's services will need to be met corporately from the General Reserve. Thankfully, there are corporate underspends elsewhere that can cover off some of this position with additional investment income and savings on capital financing costs through delaying borrowing and on the general contingencies budget, which can offset this position. The updated forecasts show a contribution to our General Reserve in year, a £4.3 million corporate underspend, meaning that the General Reserve would be £30.4 million at the end of the year, 5.8% of the Council's net revenue budget. Had it not been for the one-off levy account surplus grant distribution recently received from Government of £1 million, than the forecast contribution to the general reserve would have been as forecast at Q2. Overall, excluding schools balances, based on these forecasts, our earmarked reserves are now forecast to fall by 34.4 million this year, around 1.1 million more than what was forecast at Q2. The forecast cash limit, general reserves and earmarked reserves position for the Council, although forecast to reduce to the year end, still demonstrate strong financial resilience. However, while we have sizable reserves, it's important to note that we are a huge organisation, the 7th biggest unitary council in the country, with an annual gross expenditure in excess of £1 billion a year. And our reserves are proportionate to our size, as evidenced by the CIPFA Financial Resilience Index. I would also highlight that 22.5 million of the 162.2 million of earmarked reserves we hold are sums held on behalf of others, and that 3.72 million of the MTFP support reserve is being drawn on next year to balance the budget. In terms of collection funds, the next net position across the two collection funds is a forecast surplus of 849,000, which is slightly higher than the 649,000 forecast at Q2. The amended capital programme, taking into account reprofiling and new grants and contributions secured since we considered the Q2 report results in a revised 23-24 capital programme of circa 259 million this year, with around 147 million of capital expenditure having been incurred by 31st of December. I support the amendments made to the capital budget as outlined in the papers and note the good performance against the various prudential indicators agreed by Council in February 2023 and the delivery of significant investment to 31st of December, where capital spending to the end of Q3 exceeded that which we were able to deliver in the whole of last year. We continue to invest capital at record levels in this county. As for our dedicated school grant position, like the Council, our maintained schools are facing unavoidable inflationary pressures. The updated forecasts, however, factor in the additional grants schools are receiving to help them meet the costs of the Teachers' Pay Award and the additional targeted and top-up funding they will receive to help with meeting the costs of children with special educational needs. Overall, our maintained schools are now forecasting a reduced draw on their reserves to help balance their budgets this year, which is welcome news and a much better position than their initial budget estimates. Overall, there are 84 schools who are forecasting they will draw on their reserves in year, totalling 5.7 million, but 68 are forecasting a 3.4 million addition to their reserves. Disappointingly, there is still a forecast overspend in our high needs DSG funding to the year end, with the updated forecast indicating an in-year overspend of 2.4 million, slightly higher than what was forecast at Q2, which was 2.1. This is particularly worrying given the detailed analysis we considered in December, which set out some eye-watering high-needs DSG overspend forecasts across the coming 3 to 5 years. The updated forecast set out in the report will result in a circa £11 million cumulative deficit to recover somehow in future years. In terms of delivery of MTFP savings this year, it's pleasing to note that up to 31st of December we've delivered around 90% of the 12.4 million of savings requirements for the year. In summary, the report identifies a range of budget pressures that are largely outside of our control that are placing huge pressures on the council budgets. Through a combination of prudent financial management and one-off savings in our capital financing budgets, additional investment income being generated and the receipt of the levy account grant, we have been able to accommodate these pressures in the year. And with that, I move the recommendations as set out in this report at paragraph 28. Could I now invite Councillor Chris Hood, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Adult and Health Services, to second the report.
Thank you, Chair. Can I also add my thanks to those of Councillor Bell, to Paul and his team for this detailed report, and to all budget managers across the Council for their continued effective management of their budgets in what are difficult circumstances. Accurately forecasting and keeping track of the finances in a council of the scale and complexity of ours is challenging, but managing our finances is a key issue for us all. Our robust financial management of this council has consistently been recognised in the value for money assessments from our external auditors, and was also recognised in the CIPFA peer review, which was considered by the Audit Committee on the 29th of February. Despite the significant growth we built into the current year's budget, the overspend in children and young people services has increased again from Q2 to a forecast £8.1 million overspend, and this will need to be picked up corporately at year end. Many of the inflationary and demand pressures in this report will continue into next year and were factored into the 2024-25 budget report last month. The challenges we face in balancing our budgets going forward is significant, but we remain in a relatively strong position and are well placed to meet those challenges. Of course, many of the pressures we face are also faced by our schools, both maintained and academies, with the report identifying an improved position in terms of our maintained schools budget and their retained balances compared to their original budgets, largely as a result of reduced energy costs, the additional funding they will receive through the Teachers' Pay Award Grant, and the receipt of additional funding for pupils with special educational needs. That said, our maintained schools are still forecasting to draw a net £2.3 million from their reserves this year, with 84 schools drawing a forecast £5.729 million from their retained reserves in year to offset in-year overspending, and 68 schools forecasting a £3.443 million addition to their reserves to reflect in-year underspending. It is pleasing to note that to the 31st of December, we have delivered £146 million of capital investment, more than was delivered in the whole of last year, when we spent around £143 million. I fully expect that capital investment will top at least £200 million this year, by far and away the largest level of capital investment in a single year that this Council has ever delivered. With that, I'm happy to second the recommendations as set out in the report at paragraph 28, including the amendments to the capital programme as outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Can we agree the report and its recommendations? I can confirm that the recommendations are agreed. Item 8, Tree Management Policy and Inspections Review Report of the Corporate Director of Neighbourhoods and Climate Change. Can I ask Alan Patrickson, the Director, to present the report, please?
Thank you. This report brings forward proposed revisions to the Corporate Tree Management Policy, incorporating new tree inspections and risk management procedures for Cabinet approval. The Council's tree management policy was first approved in July 2014 following a large public consultation, and the original policy is attached at Appendix 3. The policy has provided information to the public on tree-related matters and has set out a common approach to dealing with customer inquiries both fairly and consistently. The policy has been subject to periodic review, with minor amendments being introduced in 2017 and again in 2020. The revision brought forward today is intended to better reflect the current policy environment, to incorporate improvements in the Council's approach to tree risk management, to clarify existing policies where necessary as a result of customer feedback, and to introduce additional policy and guidance on new and emerging issues such as ash dieback. The review has been informed by feedback from officers across a number of frontline services, including Clean and Green, highway maintenance and property services. And the issues relating to the review were considered by the Environment and Sustainable Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee in July of 2023. A summary of the key areas of change is provided in the report from paragraph 17 onwards, and the revised policy is attached in Appendix 2 in full. The revised policy takes a new approach to tree risk management. This is becoming ever more important, particularly as extreme weather events are becoming more common, increasing the risk of damage to property or persons from fallen or damaged trees. This issue has been highlighted particularly by the recent case in Newcastle, where a school child was tragically hit and killed by a falling tree in the school playground. As a result, the revised policy sets out a new approach to tree inspection, maintenance, planning and management, known as VALID. This is an internationally recognised method for assessing and managing tree risks and reflects the guidance in national policy such as that published by the National Tree Safety Group. In essence, the VALID system provides a framework for tree inspections on a prioritised basis, enabling the Council to assess and manage the risk from its tree stock. Tree inspections will be carried out on a zoned basis, with cycles of active and passive assessment based on the zone risk profile. This will apply, for example, to trees in urban areas, those adjacent to highways and public rights of way, those in the vicinity of schools, and those in rural sites. Tree inspection procedures related to each zone are currently under development and will evolve depending on initial feedback from surveys. And the system will develop over time as our data and intelligence improves, and it is proposed that an initial audit of procedures is carried out 12 months after this implementation. The revised policy also deals with a number of tree maintenance and management issues that have been part of the existing policy but require updating to describe in more detail the work that the Council carries out and why. New paragraphs have also been added on trees on unregistered land or uncertain ownership, trees forming ancient woodland and veteran trees, dealing with the increasing risk from ash dieback, and also clarifying a number of issues that have arisen from common service requests. Again, these changes are summarised in the cover report, this time in paragraphs 45 onwards and 56 onwards, with the full policy again being attached to Appendix 2. In conclusion, the proposed revised tree management policy will enable the Council to better manage its tree stock, enable clearer communication with residents who have tree-related inquiries, and puts the Council in a better position to address future issues such as ash dieback. The recommendations, Chair, are set out in paragraph 10.
Thank you, Alan. Can I invite Councillor Mark Wilkes, Cabinet Member for Neighbourhoods and Climate Change, to move the report?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Alan. Our tree management policy has proven to be a useful and valuable document helping to set out the approach to managing the trees under our care, as well as dealing with trees in private ownership that pose a safety risk to the public. The original policy was approved in 2014 following a detailed public consultation exercise, and this has occasionally been updated since. This update is both timely and necessary. The issue of tree risk management has been thrown into sharp focus recently with the increasing number of storms and severe weather events that have posed a risk from trees being damaged or even falling in strong winds and heavy rain. In addition, as we've just heard, we've also been moved but alarmed by the tragic incident in Newcastle involving the loss of a child's life due to a fallen tree at their school. Trees are vital to the ecosystem of the planet, and as we are living in times of an ecological crisis with increasing loss of habitat and biodiversity across the UK, as well as internationally, trees must be protected wherever possible. In doing so, however, we need to be conscious of the risks that inherently exist from close proximity to housing, schools and the highway. I would point out at this, Chair, that recognising past cutbacks from the previous administration, when we took over the Council, we have, despite financial pressures that we face, increased our investment into staffing, increasing our tree team capacity, which has had a marked positive impact, providing extra resources. We also continue to plant record numbers of trees and woodland. The revised inspection regime set out in this report adopts an internationally recognised system for tree risk management, using our stretched, albeit improved resources effectively and efficiently to achieve a significantly better outcome, but without increasing costs further. The proposed policy will help us to meet statutory and other legal duties, manage the risks arising from trees in a proportionate way, and deliver a high standard of tree care. It is a significant improvement on the existing documents, learning from experience and customer feedback, and bringing into consideration current tree health issues, whilst also giving members of the public more useful information on tree management issues in a clear and consistent way. I would thank officers because the amount of time that it takes drawing up these reports is quite extensive, but it is essential. I'm happy to move the recommendations, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkes. Can I invite Councillor Ted Henderson, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People's Services, to second the report?
Thank you, Chair. I also welcome this report and the updates to the tree management policy. Trees enhance our landscapes and our neighbourhoods, providing green cover, landscape and texture, as well as habitat for wildlife, flora and fauna. All landowners have responsibilities to manage and care for the trees on their estate. And as a council, we are in the same position. The updates presented here are sensible, balanced and proportionate, and many come directly from listening to our customers and understanding the issues that arise from our tree stock. There's elected members, many of us will deal with inquiries from residents about trees. This revised policy presents information on a clear, concise and understandable way, covering maintenance, the management and the conservation issues that will help in everyday inquiries. There are also new and emerging issues here, such as ash dieback. Although this disease has not taken hold in the county as severely as in other parts of the country, it will inevitably come, and we need to be prepared and have a clear and proportionate approach. I particularly welcome the new inspection regime, bordering out the way we cover the risks from our tree stock, especially in the context of the increasing risks from weather events in the county. The tragic case of Ella Henderson at Gosforth Park touched all our hearts and demonstrates the serious, tragic consequences of not getting this right. Chair, I second this report.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Can we agree the report and its recommendations? I can confirm that the recommendations are agreed. Item 9, Public Space Protection Order, Durham City, Report of Corporate Director of Neighbourhoods and Climate Change. Can I ask Alan Patrickson, Corporate Director, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks Cabinet approval to undertake a public consultation exercise on the introduction of a public space protection order within Durham City to help control a number of antisocial behaviours within a defined area. A public space protection order, or PSPO, can be an effective tool to tackle antisocial type behaviour in areas where it has been evidenced that there's a persistent and ongoing problem and that this is having a detrimental effect on the quality of life for those in the locality. The Antisocial Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act of 2014 gave powers to local authorities to introduce PSPOs where certain evidential tests are met. Since the introduction of the Act, there has been a county-wide PSPO for dog fouling and also a PSPO introduced in Durham City to restrict the consumption of alcohol in public places. Failure to comply with the orders of a PSPO is dealt with through the issue of a fixed penalty notice. This can be done by authorised officers of the local authority or any other person authorised by Durham Constabulary. The consultation proposed is in relation to the need for and public support for a PSPO to help control the following: begging, urinating or defecating in a public place, and the use of intoxicating substances in a public place other than for valid medical reasons. These issues have been identified and evidenced by Durham Constabulary as being of particular concern in the city. Begging in Durham city centre is seen as a persistent and in some cases aggressive, and concern has been raised by a number of city centre partners, including the Constabulary, the City of Durham Parish Council, numerous individual business owners and members of the public. It should be noted, however, that this is seen as an entirely separate issue from the genuine issue of homelessness, with increasing numbers of individuals being attracted to the city centre to obtain money from begging and then engaging in other forms of antisocial and criminal behaviour. Working with colleagues in the police force, it's clear that there already exists a considerable body of evidence for this pattern of behaviour and the need to address it. However, consultation with the public remains not only a statutory requirement, but also a necessary endorsement of any new powers to be introduced. While existing legislation can and has been used to act against these antisocial behaviours, the advantage of a PSPO is that it enables police and council officers to deliver a swift sanction in the form of a fixed penalty notice. It should be noted that the sanction would not necessarily lead to an individual having to leave the vicinity if they comply with the PSPO. However, the introduction of the order itself would constitute a strong disincentive to be in the area in the first place. This report therefore suggests a minimum 6-week consultation on the proposal set out, which would allow members of the public, businesses and other city partners and enforcement agencies to detail fully their responses. A further report would come forward to Cabinet detailing the findings and to confirm the outcome of the consultation and to propose a way forward. Chair, recommendations are set out in paragraph 11 of the report.
Thank you, Alan. Can I invite Councillor Elizabeth Scott, Cabinet Member for Economy and Partnerships, to move the report?
Thank you, Chair, and I'll take the opportunity to thank everybody involved in the work that's gone on so far in this area. Community safety and the fight against antisocial behaviour are priorities for this Council and for our partners. And as Alan's already referenced, I think this is a real area of concern for our residents, our businesses and visitors to the city. The work of the Safe Durham Partnership, the Durham City Safety Group and many other operational groups demonstrates the strength of our joint working. By collaborating, sharing information and engaging in joint operations, we work together with stakeholders and partners to keep our county safe. As part of this work, it is vital that we examine every tool available to us collectively and that we explore where benefits can be delivered. It's in this spirit that we previously considered a public space protection order for Durham City in 2023. At that time, we were not in a position to take the order forward. The results of the public consultation was inconclusive and the evidence unclear in terms of the legal tests that we must address to introduce an order. However, we said at that time that we would not leave the issue unaddressed, and we have not. We've continued to work with colleagues in the police and with partners across the city to establish whether there is enough concern and, importantly, enough evidence to revisit the possibility of introducing a PSPO for the city. This report concludes that there may be. Statute requires that we must go back out to consultation to seek the views and evidence of those most affected, and as always, it's important that we do so before making a final decision. This has been a long-running issue with a number of viewpoints. We must proceed responsibly and diligently to get the best result for all concerned, and I therefore welcome this second consultation. Chair, I move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Can I invite Councillor Mark Wilkes, Cabinet Member for Neighbourhoods and Climate Change, to second the report?
Thank you, Chair. We're all aware that antisocial behaviour is consistently one of the main concerns of residents, not only in County Durham, but across the region and across the country as well. It's important that we do everything we can within the powers that we have and the resources that we have at our disposal to tackle the problem. It's also vital that we listen to consultation feedback and work within the guidance and the letter of the law that is set out for us. And this is exactly what we're proposing here. We have listened to the views expressed by those in the city affected by ASB, and we have worked carefully and diligently with police colleagues to enable this report to be brought here today. The report sets out positive and proactive way forward to meet our legal obligations, whilst also listening to the views of our businesses, residents and other stakeholders. And as we go back out to consultation on this proposal, I would emphasise that we continue to work daily, very closely, with the police, businesses, City of Durham Parish Council and others to tackle antisocial behaviour effectively. Chair, I second the report.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkes. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Can we agree the report and its recommendations? I can confirm that the recommendations are agreed. Thank you. Item 10, New Business Units, South Church Enterprise Park, Bishop Auckland, Report of Corporate Director of Regeneration, Economy and Growth. Can I ask Andy Kerr, Head of Economic Development, to present the report?
This report seeks approval to progress the development of new business units on land owned by the Council at South Church Enterprise Park, Bishop Auckland, as part of a Stronger Towns programme. The report sets out that the county has a shortage of new industrial units, which is restricting the growth of new and existing local companies wanting to set up or grow a business. A market research study in 2022 identified that at locations such as South Church, market rents are too low to attract direct development from the private sector. Therefore, support is needed from the public sector to bring forward investment in new industrial units to meet demand, and also to provide a support package to help create and sustain the growth of new and young businesses. The proposal is to address this issue by developing 45,000 square feet of new units at South Church, where demand remains high but there is a shortage of small industrial units. The units will be 1,000 to 2,000 square feet, suitable for new and young small businesses. The total capital cost of a scheme is 8.5 million, which will be partly met through grants of 1.5 million from the Stronger Towns Fund and £1.8 million from UK Shared Prosperity Fund. The remaining £5.2 million will be funded on a self-financing basis. Whilst this will be a significant upfront investment for the Council, the capital would be repaid through rental income over an acceptable payback period, and all market analysis shows high demand. While marketing and management of units be coordinated by the Council's Business Durham Service, which has a track record of managing similar units of this size across the county and current occupancy levels in excess of 95%, measures will be in place to mitigate the risk. The full recommendations for this report are set out in paragraph 9.
Thank you, Andy. Can I invite Councillor Elizabeth Scott, Cabinet Member for Economy and Partnerships, to move the report?
Thank you, Chair. The development of high-quality premises on our employment sites is one of the main priorities in our inclusive economic strategy, as the shortage of industrial units in the county is restricting the growth of new and existing companies, with demand consistently outstripping supply. The shortage is particularly acute in the Bishop Auckland area, and this scheme is an opportunity to address this issue by utilising land that the council owns at South Church Enterprise Park to provide much-needed industrial units, which will go some way towards meeting this pent-up demand. The project is a key part of the Bishop Auckland Stronger Towns programme, and the units, once developed, will support more than 20 businesses and more than 110 jobs, with a package of wraparound enterprise support being provided by the local enterprise agency. I formally move the recommendations as set out in paragraph 9.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. As Cabinet Member for Finance, I will speak to second the report. I am pleased that we've been able to make good use of government funding available through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the Stronger Towns Fund in Bishop Auckland. It's important that the Council uses external funding and its own resources to bring forward projects which will create the conditions for local businesses to be able to thrive and create more and better jobs across the county. The rental income from the completed units will repay the Council's upfront funding, meaning this is a prudent financial investment. I'm therefore happy to second the recommendations in this report. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Can we agree the report? Councillor Wilkes.
Yeah, I didn't say I was going to speak. It's really brief, Chair. I just briefly want to say that the work this council's doing to grow our county is unparalleled compared to what came before us. And I think it shows that this joint administration is investing in every part of our county to boost employment. And I applaud the work our officers and portfolio holder are doing, not just in Bishop Auckland, but county-wide, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkes. Can we agree the report and its recommendations? I can confirm that the recommendations are agreed. Item 11, County Durham Partnership Update, Report of Corporate Director of Neighbourhoods and Climate Change. Can I ask Alan Patrickson, Corporate Director, to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. This report is the regular roundup for Cabinet and for wider readership of the activities of the County Durham Partnership. It presents information on the work of the partnership boards and the AAPs across the county. The report is in the familiar format of two parts. The first outlines the work of the partnership board itself, dealing particularly with cross-cutting issues. And the second part deals with the work of our thematic partnerships under the three strategic ambitions of more and better jobs, people living long and independent lives, and connected communities. The report covers the period September 2023 to February 2024. The County Durham Partnership Board held its annual event in November, which this year celebrated 10 years of public health within the local authority and 10 years of health and wellbeing boards. The event was very well supported, with a large number of partners in attendance to hear a number of high-profile speakers, including Professor Dame Carol Black, the Government's Independent Advisor on Drug Misuse, and Peter Kelly, the Regional Director for Public Health. The event also saw the relaunch of the County Durham Together Community Champions, a network of local people from across the county who care passionately about health and wellbeing and who can act as trusted voices within their communities on health and wellbeing issues. The January board focused on the delivery plan for the inclusive economic strategy from the the economic partnership, and also updated the partnership board on the progress towards North East devolution. The report highlights the work led by the Advice and County Durham Partnership in preparation for universal credit migration, which began its rollout in July of 2023. A conference in September brought national speakers and local providers together to inform and highlight areas where practical and collaborative support could be provided to individuals through a no wrong door approach. The report also details the ongoing work of the Poverty Action Steering Group, concentrating on protecting and supporting our most vulnerable communities through the cost of living crisis, and a detailed annual report of the work of the group was presented to Cabinet in February of 2024. The Fun with Food programme continues to deliver on its objectives of providing enriching activities for young people with food, tackling food poverty and holiday hunger. During the October half-term holiday, 81 projects were delivered across the county, with a further 69 projects across the Christmas break. The humanitarian support team continue to support refugee families across the county. This is a fast-changing and complex area of work, with a number of schemes now running in parallel to support those fleeing conflicts around the world, including families and individuals from Afghanistan, Syria and Ukraine. In addition, the team continues to work with partners across the voluntary sector to support those within the government's full dispersal asylum accommodation scheme. The report touches on the ongoing work of the Safeguarding, the Community Safety and other statutory partnership boards, all of which continue to deliver on their important agendas of providing assurance, support and challenge to maintain and increase standards of partnership governance and reporting, while also focusing on practical outcomes. The remainder of the report outlines the work of the thematic partnerships and AAPs in support of the County Durham vision across those three key themes. In each of these areas, the report highlights work being done at a county level, alongside some outstanding examples of the extensive local delivery work facilitated through area action partnerships, demonstrating the thriving local partnership work across the county. Chair, the recommendation in paragraph 16 is to note the report.
Thank you, Alan. Can I invite Councillor Elizabeth Scott, Cabinet Member for Economy and Partnerships, to speak to the report?
Thank you, Chair. As portfolio holder for Economy and Partnerships, I'm always delighted to see the work of our multitude of partnerships pulled together in one place. County Durham's strong partnership relationships are well established and constantly evolving, and our partnership moves us closer towards the County Durham vision. In November, we celebrated 10 years of public health in the local authority and 10 years of health and wellbeing boards at the County Durham Partnership event at Ramside Hall. The event provided a welcome opportunity and space for colleagues from across the partnership spectrum to celebrate our successes and focus on the future for improved health and wellbeing in our communities. It reflects well upon Durham that we attracted such a respected national speaker in Dame Carol Black, the government's independent advisor on drug misuse. The event was also a great platform to relaunch the County Durham Together Community Champions, repositioning them as a key lever in our County Durham Together approach and further embedding the approach with all partners. The champions are an effective way of empowering our communities to make informed choices and to gather honest local insight. We also welcome back Lumiere, always a welcome opportunity to provide free, universal access to some spectacular art installations and to show off our county at its best, a boost to culture, health and the economy. After 8 iterations, Lumiere still brings anticipation, inspiration and an army of visitors to our city. But this year it was particularly exciting to include Bishop Auckland in the spectacle, showing off more of what our county has to offer and making the experience more easily accessible to everyone. I'm really looking forward to seeing the outcome of an economic impact assessment, which will be presented to Cabinet later this year. It's great to see the work taking place at a strategic level and how this has been reflected in communities by our AAPs, particularly as families and businesses continue to struggle with cost of living pressures. I would recommend that everyone read the excellent examples of local work by AAPs, including the Wellbeing Project, expanding upon welcome spaces in East Durham Rural Corridor AAP, financial services surgeries delivered in Chesley Street and District AAP, and additional space to house the food bank in Bishop Auckland and Shildon. The Fun and Food programme continues to be a vital support for families in school holidays, and I'm glad we've been able to continue to provide the provision in half-term holidays in addition to the DFE-funded programme. As well as vital healthy food, the many partners involved in delivering fun and food provide enriching, engaging, creative opportunities and experiences for children who wouldn't ordinarily be able to access them. National interest in the County Durham Pound project continues, and the social value work has expanded exponentially, now being adopted by partners within their respective organisations, and we're looking forward to including the private and third sector in the next phase of the project. It's always been an ambition to maximise every pound spent in the county for local people, and it's pleasing to see us now facing this challenge head-on, making real progress. Partnership working is in a strong place with the Joint Local Health and Wellbeing Strategy 23-28 now embedded, a truly inclusive economic strategy in place to take us up to 2035, a new Safe Durham Partnership Strategy 24-29 to be agreed later this year, the second iteration of our Climate Emergency Response Plan in full swing, and the prospect of a local nature recovery strategy next year. The final piece in the puzzle is the ongoing development of local networks to build on the success of AAPs, strengthen the links with the wider partnership and bolster decision making at a local level. So I ask colleagues, Chair, to note the report.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Shield.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Alan Patrickson and the portfolio holder for giving us a very comprehensive overview of the partnership. And I'd just like to touch on a few items where my personal interest is involved. The Welcome Space initiative, which followed on from the hugely successful Warm Space, has been very widely received and welcomed in our communities. It has addressed the social exclusion, and it's promoting social and cohesive inclusion. And that's been supported by the funding provided by Durham County Council and County Durham Community Partnership. The work ongoing by the Poverty Action Steering Group and the funding provided from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund because of the worry that we had regarding the concern about the Household Support Fund, and I do acknowledge that the Chancellor has accepted a lot of criticism that was too short a time to cancel that funding, and it's been released for a further 6 months. I also need to mention, Chair, that both Councillor Henderson and I attended a child and adolescent to parent violent abuse, shortened to CAPFA, at the conference in Durham Centre in Belmont. I was hugely supportive regarding the dedication, the determination and drive from a multitude of participants, especially the CAPFA and ambassadors, and they're very much leading the way. And finally, as been mentioned by the Director, the work undertaken by our humanitarian team in support of the refugees and the migrants, predominantly recently families from Afghanistan, and not forgetting the Homes for England sponsorship scheme, which is promoting some 670 guests and 300 households, and their consideration and introduction of the full dispersal asylum accommodation programme. Chair, I've previously mentioned in full council, it's so easy to be negative and to complain. And to be frank, we have some world champions in this chamber. But the evidence, which is intelligence and data-led, support the progress that this county is making. All of these initiatives and many, many more, previously mentioned by the Director and the portfolio holder, show the commitment to deliver on its 3 strategic objectives: more and better jobs, people to live long and independent lives, and to promote connected communities. Long may it continue, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shield. Councillor Wilkes.
Thank you, Chair. At the weekend, I attended the Environment Awards with yourself and others, and we saw some pretty amazing businesses, volunteer groups and individuals, and the kind of things that they are doing, improving our environment. And it's those partnerships with the council, businesses and individuals that are absolutely essential. And actually it can be seen from the recent climate scorecards, which show that as a council we're at the top nationwide in terms of partnership working and communication with the public around climate change. All of these partnerships are essential, and in the coming months we'll commence consultation on the Climate Emergency Response Plan 3 for 2024 to 27, which will assist us in working even closer with all organisations and individuals across the county. We really, as a county, do an amazing job working in partnership across so many different areas, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkes. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Can we ask Cabinet to note the report then, please? Thank you. Item 12, any other business? I have not been notified of any other business. So I would like to thank everyone for taking part, and to those members of the public and media who have watched this meeting. That concludes the business for the meeting. Thank you.